Canadian homes are engineered to survive -40. Triple-pane windows, deep foundations, insulation rated for the harshest winters on Earth. Yet every spring, billions of dollars in damage flood through those very same homes. In 2013 alone, Calgary lost over $6 billion. These were houses that met every line of the building code. The code just never accounted for the moment winter ends. Step inside a Canadian home in midwinter, and the engineering is on full display. Triple-pane windows lock in heat. They are argon-filled chambers resisting even the sharpest wind. Walls are packed with insulation dense enough to muffle the world outside, boasting R values that rival Arctic research stations. Deep concrete footings push below the frost line, sometimes 2 meters down, anchoring every house against the heaving grip of frozen earth. Heating systems are built for endurance, running day and night from November through March, calibrated to keep pipes from freezing when the mercury drops past -40. Every detail, from the vapor barriers in the attic to the insulated doors at the back step, reflects a country that has mastered the science of surviving cold. This is a nation where building codes are written with winter in mind, and where technical pride runs deep. Yet for all this expertise, a single question lingers. How can homes built to withstand the harshest cold still be left exposed when spring arrives? On a June morning in 2013, water started seeping through the baseboards of a Calgary split level, pooling on the basement tiles before anyone realized what was happening. By noon, the entire lower floor was underwater. The homeowner, a teacher in the East Village, watched as years of family photos, a furnace and the washer and dryer disappeared beneath muddy runoff. She remembers the silence after the power cut and the slow realization that the home she thought was safe, built to every code, insulated for cold, and with its foundations sunk well below the frost line, offered no protection against the rising meltwater. Across Calgary, nearly 100,000 people were forced from their homes. The Red Cross counted over 9,400 families needing emergency help. The 2013 flood left more than $6 billion in damages, with basements bearing the brunt, furniture ruined, walls torn out, and months of repairs ahead. For many, insurance only covered a fraction of the loss. The sense of security that came from meeting every building standard vanished in a single spring. The question that lingers, when a house can be perfectly legal and still drown, what does that say about the rules themselves? A Canadian home can pass every inspection, collect its occupancy permit, and still end up with a basement full of water every spring. The National Building Code sets out clear, measurable targets for surviving winter. R values for walls and roofs, minimum depths for foundations, rigorous standards for airtightness, and vapor barriers. These rules are enforced down to the decimal, but when it comes to moving water away from homes, the code's language grows vague. Drainage requirements are often limited to a 2% slope away from the foundation, just enough to nudge rainwater toward the street, but not nearly enough to handle a rapid spring thaw. Until the 2025 edition, there was no national requirement to model how much water a melting snowpack might release, or whether a subdivision's pipes could handle it. Even now, the snowmelt runoff model clause is optional, left out of most provincial codes. The result is a legal paradox. A house can meet every standard for thermal performance and structural stability, yet sit atop a drainage system designed for yesterday's rainfall, not today's spring floods. Compliance in this context means surviving February but risking disaster in April. The code recognizes cold as an engineering problem, but treats water as an afterthought, leaving homeowners to discover the gap only when it's too late. In the decades after World War II, a new blueprint for Canadian suburbs took shape, not just in the look of neighborhoods, but in the way water was managed beneath their streets. The Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, CMHC, published thick manuals that spelled out every detail for planners and engineers: where to place roads, how wide to make lots, and crucially, how to size the pipes that would carry stormwater away from homes. These guides became the silent backbone of city growth from Calgary to Toronto to Winnipeg. At their core was a simple hydrologic template, design everything around a 10-year rainfall event, typically 25 millimeters of rain falling in an hour. The standard storm main was 150 millimeters in diameter, copied from city to city, stamped and approved without much debate. A historian from the National Housing Authority describes the era this way. The manuals were about repeatability. You could take the same pipe chart from a suburb in Ottawa and use it in Saskatoon, no questions asked. But these templates came with a blind spot. They assumed that snowmelt would trickle away slowly, spread over weeks, and so it was left out of the calculations for peak flow. The reality, as later decades would show, is that a fast spring thaw can unleash more water in a few days than a design storm ever would. Yet for more than a generation, subdivisions rose on the promise that rainfall was the only threat worth planning for. The legacy of these decisions is still buried under our streets, an entire drainage system built to handle yesterday's storms, not today's spring floods. Basements are the heart of the Canadian housing paradox. Nearly 7 out of 10 single-family homes in Canada include a finished basement, a rate unmatched anywhere else in the developed world. The reason is rooted in both geology and economics. Across the country, frost lines run deep, often between 1.2 and 2.4 meters below ground. Building codes require foundations to reach beneath this frozen barrier to prevent heaving and cracking. Once the excavation is done, adding a basement is a marginal cost, not a luxury. Developers have every reason to go further. Since the post-war era, the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation has offered lower mortgage insurance rates for homes with finished basements, and municipal bylaws in provinces like Ontario and Alberta often set minimum finished floor areas that are easiest to meet by digging down. This below-grade space is not just for storage. It's where families put bedrooms, rec rooms, laundry, and home offices. Water heaters, furnaces, and electrical panels are almost always installed on the lowest level. In effect, the most valuable and vulnerable parts of a house, appliances, family keepsakes, even a child's first drawings, are concentrated below ground, behind a shell of concrete and waterproofing membrane. When spring meltwater finds its way in, the losses are immediate and personal. The Insurance Bureau of Canada reports that basement flooding now accounts for nearly 40% of all residential insurance claims, surpassing fire. The average payout for a flooded basement stands at $7,800, but the true cost, months of disruption, lost memories, a gutted lower floor, rarely fits on a claim form. In a country that prides itself on engineering for cold, the basement has become both a badge of thermal mastery and a point of structural exposure, where the limits of policy and design are measured in ruined furniture and waterlogged drywall. In the summer of 2024, the numbers told their own story. Flood losses across Ontario and Nova Scotia climbed past $3.5 billion, a figure that put this year among the most expensive in Canadian history. Behind every claim was a pattern: municipal drainage systems, some built in the 1960s, buckled under the pressure of a rapid thaw. In Ottawa, an audit of 2,500 kilometres of storm sewers found that more than 40% had exceeded their design capacity during the June floods. Halifax reported 850 homes with compromised foundations after water levels surged nearly 2 metres above basement floors. Andrew Livingston, a senior municipal engineer, described the scene this way: "Our pipes were sized for a world that no longer exists. When the snowpack goes all at once, the system cannot keep up." Across affected neighbourhoods, engineers traced the failures to the same legacy pipes and culverts designed around old rainfall models, not the reality of a spring melt that now comes faster and harder each year. The technical crisis is clear. Even the best-built homes are only as safe as the infrastructure beneath their streets. Insurance companies have drawn a hard line. Over the past 4 years, flood premiums have soared 200 to 400% in high-risk neighbourhoods. Major insurers like Aviva and Intact have pulled out of flood-prone areas in Calgary, Winnipeg, and southern Ontario, pointing to annual losses now reaching $1 to $2 billion. Sophie Leclerc of the Insurance Bureau of Canada says, "We're pricing risk that's already built into the system. The code says these homes are safe, but the claims tell a different story." The market has spoken. Building code compliance no longer means protection, and homeowners are left to absorb the cost. Northern Europe offers a different path. In the Netherlands, every new subdivision includes retention basins for spring melt. German and Swiss codes require permeable paving and underground storage, cutting flood claims nearly in half. A Dutch planner puts it simply, we treat water as a fact, not a surprise. Canada's reforms include mandatory snowmelt modelling, on-site retention, and linking insurance maps to permits. Today, a house can meet every code and still be allowed to flood. As insurers pull back and losses mount, the signals are clear. Engineering for winter is not enough. Until policy catches up with nature, spring will keep finding the cracks. What would it take to finally fix them?